Is there any hard evidence that Jesus even existed, let alone the resurrection? So that's a trick question. I saw this little video and it's put on by one, I think, things I learned today kind of a deal. Evidence is one of those things, it's never hard, especially if we were talking about historical evidence. It's never hard. Evidence is something that leads you to a conclusion. It doesn't prove a fact. It leads you to a conclusion. And so, for instance, the evidence of the life of Alexander the Great, there's no hard evidence of it. There's no hard evidence of most anything historically. One time I listened to a professor, he's actually a professor at Columbia University in New York, and he said history is an art. He was talking about history is an art. An archaeologist and geologist and an anthropologist, they'll get together and they look at evidence and then they create a picture of what they believed happened. And so, yeah, do we have hard evidence? We don't. What we have is we have evidence that leads us to a conclusion. And whenever that happens, you've got people who can have different conclusions based on biases. And some people's biases lead them to dismiss certain pieces of evidence. They don't like it. They choose not to use that because it does not help them come to the conclusion they want to come to. And we all face those biases. We have them. And the best thing we can do, though, is acknowledge that we have that bias, and that bias is changing and influencing how we look at the evidence. So there is evidence. There is plenty of evidence that Jesus existed, that Jesus lived, died, and resurrected again from the grave. Plenty of evidence. And in legal terms, that the evidence that exists in legal terms would be sufficient to bring the conclusion that, yes, in fact, Jesus lived, died, and rose again from the grave.